Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.
Welcome to all.
History is made of stories.
In this episode, we'll be taking a look at the concept of feedback.
Some people like to think of modern-day management as a combination of goodwill, positive thinking, and feedback. Regular, constructive, well-meaning feedback, all of which sounds great on paper. It makes it seem like management is all about keeping people happy.
It sometimes feels like feedback is the acme of management, as if a manager's only goal is to be nice and give employees a few positive pointers. But all of that skirts around the real purpose of feedback. So, what is it, really? Why do we do it? What's the story?
Feedback is one of those management essentials. But what is management? Management is about delegating responsibility, giving an employee a degree of autonomy and leeway, setting up a suitable system of checkpoints to keep things under control and gauge progress, and building mutual trust.
But I noticed that last definition didn't actually include the magic word, feedback. Feedback needs to happen on a regular basis, every step of the way, to mark key milestones.
When we started this project together, for example, we agreed on the end goal, along with our respective roles and responsibilities and the schedule. The first step was to write the first podcast, and once that was done, I sent it to you and you gave me your feedback.
And then you gave me yours, because I'm not your boss.
True, but even in an employee-manager relationship, feedback should go both ways. The whole point of feedback is to move forward together.
Right. And we can only do that if we move away from the judgment and focus on the feedback. Managers delegate responsibilities and give people the resources they need to meet their goals. Then, they use regular milestones to make sure everything is on track and make any adjustments needed.
So, feedback serves two purposes. It helps managers, who delegate a mission but still shoulder responsibility, by making sure an individual's results fit in with the end goals of the project.
And feedback also helps employees, who need to know if things are on track so they can deal with any relevant issues. They need to know whether their work is meeting expectations.
In fact, feedback serves several purposes. It provides a toolkit to unlock progress and develop the skills of employees, but it can also be a source of recognition for their results and efforts.
So how do you give feedback?
Well, it's important to remember that feedback is not judgment. You don't want to say, that's good, or that's bad. Any input should be as objective as possible, based on an observation of the situation and the facts. Managers need to think about whether employees have performed the tasks they were assigned and have followed relevant rules.
Each checkpoint, or milestone, is designed to gauge any gap between what was expected and what was achieved. Remember, delegation requires autonomy, control, and trust. Feedback should reflect your findings after checking an employee's progress.
Not to mention the resources needed to unlock progress, which is something a manager can identify alone or with the employee. Easy. Right. So why does it seem so complicated?
The problem is not usually the feedback itself. It's a lack of understanding between the manager and the employee. That understanding is what determines the degree of autonomy, level of responsibility, relevant milestones, expected outcomes, and so on.
If you don't make it clear what you expect from the employee, then any feedback that follows will not only be difficult, it will be pointless. The quality and clarity of the initial instructions dictate the facility and fluidity of the feedback. If you find it hard to give feedback, then the initial instructions were probably not clear. Before you try giving feedback, focus instead on making sure the person understands the activity in hand.
To recap, feedback comes after each milestone to ensure employees know whether their results are in line with the expectations set out in the initial instruction. The goal is to identify the resources managers can provide to empower employees to make any adjustments needed and develop their skills going forward. Is that right?
Exactly right. Way to make a long story short.
Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.